And he's dead. What's up, Internet? Jay here with Nerd Rage Against the Machine, and today we're going to talk about one of the strangest RPGs I've played recently, and that is Mork Borg. I know it feels like it says Mork Borg on the cover, but I've been assured that it's actually pronounced Mork Borg. It is a Swedish RPG from a group called the Stockholm Cartel and distributed by Free League Publishing. Now, I've really kind of dug a lot of Free League stuff. If you've watched my channel, I've tried to run a Vossen campaign at one point over the channel. We've run Tales from the Loop. And I also really enjoy their Alien game and Twilight 2000. But this is a completely different kettle of fish. This is an RPG is so very different from a lot of games I've played. In fact, what got me interested in this was I ran the sister game, which was called Death in Space. I didn't realize at the time. Free League had sent me a free PDF, so there is a live stream on my channel. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it for the game Death in Space, which was a pretty cool game. And so when I heard about Mork Borg being basically a fantasy version of that, I was at least intrigued. So I decided to pick up a copy of the hardback. Now, this is the hardback rulebook. It is digest size. Let me just say, first off, I'm going to give you a one-word review of this game, and that word is messy. Now, that may sound like an attack on the game. It may sound like I'm just like, oh, it's a mess, you know. How dare they? But that's not it. When I say messy, I actually mean it in a very good way. This is a game that looks and feels like a punk indie zine, very much, like I said, a Swedish death metal album. You look at this, and this looks like something that two guys printed out of their college dorm room. If it wasn't for the nice hardback and a lot of the printing techniques in this book, you would think that this was literally, typed out on a Commodore 64 and cut and pasted to hell, especially with the supplements, which we'll get into in a second. But the game is not organized like a traditional RPG. Take something like Dungeons and Dragons or Traveller or Call of Cthulhu as good examples. If you look at those games, you go to their equipment section, there's normally like a spreadsheet of what the weapons do, what's a weapon name, damage, and other features. Like in D&D, what kind of damage is it doing? Is it blunt? Is it piercing, etc.? How much does it cost? Cyberpunk, I know concealability was one of those things, but you have that nice chart. And here the weapons take up only 3 pages or so, and it's a roll chart starting with one page that shows a human femur. If you roll a 1, this is your weapon, is a femur, and it does a d4 damage. And that's taken up by an entire page. The next page is this lovely medieval piece of artwork of a man being impaled by multiple weapons with the number and the damage of each of those weapons, followed by the last 3 weapons in the book, which is literally just this, 3 weapon spread out, fold out, whatever you want to call it. And the whole book is laid out like that. It's very random, very punk, which does make it a little tough to reference, especially compared to another RPG where, I could pull a new RPG off the shelf, such as Vossen or Fallout or, and go through it pretty easily. This is not going to be that way, but it's also saved by the fact that this is a super easy system. In fact, there's nothing wasted in here. When you open the book, there are charts. I mean, this is this is in the cover. In the back, there's the same thing. There's an index as well as this little handout, which I've laminated for my players, which is basically all the basics of the rules that you need to know. And this messy aesthetic actually goes to the supplements, which again are not laminated covers. These are paper covered. They look like zines. Like this looks like something you would find at like a really hip punk record store, not a game shop. And again, if it wasn't for the quality of the printing, the foil inlays and things like that, you would probably think these were produced on a typewriter in someone's basement and then photocopied with people doing cut and paste work. And these supplements also, the supplements are Phylactery and Heretic. They come with additional materials that are outside of the books, and they also are, not as organized. Again, if we look at something like Dungeons and Dragons, what does the Ravenloft supplement give you? Well, it gives you the world of Ravenloft. What does Central Supply Catalog for Traveler give you? It's basically an equipment book. What's Highguard for Traveler? It's your naval campaign. You know that. These are actually collections of fan-made material that are literally put together. I mean, case in point, this one here starts with how to make a cult. Goes into new feats. From there, we get some new classes and some scenarios. And this one's the same way. It goes into travel and hunting and other scenarios, new equipment lists. So they kind of run the gamut. It kind of almost feels like with all these products that they kind of stuffed the rules in a shotgun and then blasted it onto the page. Now, again, that may sound very, very terrible, but it's not. It is a great game. So the whole point of this game, the purpose of it, now that I've gushed over it for about an hour or so, it seems like, is that it is a fantasy RPG set at the end of the world. This is a dark and very moody RPG. So you build characters that are dealing with the end of the world, and in fact there's a great end of the world mechanic if you want to run a campaign. You decide how long the campaign is based on a die type. D2 being as short as you can make it, D100 being as long as you can make it. And what you do is you roll at the start or at the end of every session, and if you roll a 1, another seal is broken, another apocalyptic event happens. Once you've rolled 7 1s throughout the campaign, the world ends, and they even tell you to burn the book. I'm not burning this book. No. Bad. But from there, you're building characters whose lives are cheap. I would say that if you're used to Paranoia, this game has a slightly better, life isn't quite as cheap as Paranoia, but if you're looking for a game where your character will be more likely to survive, might I suggest Call of Cthulhu. We played this recently. I got my group together and we played it. We had 2 players, and I ran off 5 or so pre-generated characters just to make this game even easier. And we had 2.5 party kills, including a spiritual attack nuke going off at the end of the game. Characters die pretty easily. If you're the kind of gamer who gets offended when your character is damaged, who loves to spend all their time plotting out their character's future development, when I'm level 5, I will multi-class into this. You're gonna hate Merkburg. You're just gonna hate this game because if don't get attached to what you're playing here. It is a very crazy product, but the thing is that it really does harken back to those old school dungeon crawls. Most of the scenarios and both the core book and these 2 supplements have a solid amount of scenarios to start with. Plus, the online community is just wonderful for this game. I can't recommend looking up the online community enough. In fact, I've been told that you can even get all this material free online, but support the artists, man. Support the artists. People making something this good need to be supported. And it really is. These dungeons are simple. They're very much that whole, we're building you enough of a world, we're building you enough of a story to do what D&D players do best, murder hobo. This is, again, it's not a comedy game per se, but you can definitely derive a lot of glee and fun from the fact that your characters are not long for this earth. And the earth is not long for this earth in this game. That's, again, half the fun. If you want an RPG that is both, look how small this thing is, portable, and that's everything for the game right there. That's not even, that's pretty much the entire product set. But Interesting graphics. If you're looking for a game that is, easy to play, fun, and just one big ball of chaos, I really cannot recommend Merc highly enough. I've got to give this game a 5 out of 5. There's no way around it. Again, the only downsides are, yes, it is not the best organized game on the planet, but it's also that kind of game where you can just flip through the rules and see something, and go, God, I gotta try that. I know just a player I'm gonna put that on, and I cannot wait to see them suffer. It is a game for masochists and sadists, that's for sure. But definitely, if you like that kind of game, if you love chaotic gaming, dark gaming, and are willing to not take your lives too seriously, do yourself a huge favor and run out and buy this today. With that, I bid you adieu, and happy gaming, no matter how short it may be.